So I'd like to point out that Thomas and his trap, the guy is smoking a cigarette at all times. That can't be safe. You can't smoke cigarettes while piloting a super robot. You probably would choke on it and die. Hello everybody and welcome back to more Super Robot Wars Original Generations. We are here for Scenario 15, Thomas's Trap. And before we get into Thomas's Trap, or hopefully at least avoid it, it's time to go over our new pilot and talk a little bit about her and her fiery personality. Rio may have rich parents, but that don't mean she's no Nepo baby. It's time now to talk about Rio Meilong. Starting out with Rio's stats, Rio is more ranged focused than melee focused, and then has pretty average stats everywhere else. Her melee stat though certainly isn't bad, but that range stat is definitely what you're going to be wanting to use the most with her. Okay defense, solid evasion, and good accuracy make her pretty good at her starting level here at level 13. Taking a look now at Rio's spirit, she starts out with Flash, obviously a great spirit, gets you a guaranteed dodge. She also has Gain to get you double experience on any battle you want, and she comes at base with Valor at a really good cost at 30, so really good starting spirits. She then very soon at level 15 will get Bullseye at a good cost at 15, also will have Focus at 15 at level 18, and her final spirit at level 28 will be Drive at a pretty expensive cost at 50 SP, though we haven't seen Drive yet. Drive is a fantastic spirit. It gets you plus 30 will just to yourself. You can't cast it on somebody else. But again, a fantastic skill that will make it so that Rio can basically use any given attack at base, and certainly will get her very close to 150 will if you're using it later on in any given map. So a great spirit to really get your will up quickly if you need to do it. Of course, the expensive cost is a little unfortunate, but besides that, a great spirit. Rio is one of the lucky characters with telekinesis, so she gets those boosts to her accuracy and evasion, and if she has a mech with the telekinesis field, she can take a little less damage and protect herself a little bit more with that. So lots of great abilities with that. Telekinesis also works really well, especially with the TK field with potential. Potential, of course, as a refresher, is a skill that increases your accuracy, evasion, defense, and crit rate. The more damage you take, and with the higher level of potential, the better the boosts are, the lower your damage is. So she can get some solid use out of that. It only gets up to level 5, though naturally you'll have to level it up more past that if you want to. And finally, she gets support, attack, and support defend. Only gets one additional level at 21 for both of those. So a little bit more utility for Rio there as a supporter as well. Rio is probably the best jack-of-all-trades character in the game, or at least she certainly is one of the best early available ones. Rio has really good all-purpose spirits, solid skills, and good stats, but like I said, as a master of none, she isn't really the best at any given thing. Drive is one utility piece that she has that not a lot of other characters have, and you could, with her duo spirit as well with Earn, get some extra utility out of that. I feel like it's way too expensive and way too niche to have that. You could get a lot of mileage out of the telekinesis potential combo if you get Rio really low on HP, and so she'd have the telekinesis boost to her evasion and accuracy, and then the potential boost would make it so that she could pretty much dodge everything, especially with focus, and also hit almost everything. But again, you have to set that up, and that's one of the weaknesses of potential, especially for a unit that's probably not going to be in a very tanky mech. The support, of course, as I mentioned, is great, but again, her stats aren't outstanding. She has a good range stat, but it's not as good as some other characters. And the other thing is, she's yet another ranged character that doesn't have hit and run. It's unfortunate, but simply put, a good ranged character has hit and run. There's lots of characters in this game that have really good range and have hit and run, like Rai. Rai is really good because he has a great range stat and has hit and run, which makes him very flexible with using long range weaponry. The problem is that Rio doesn't have hit and run at base, so you're stuck in a catch-22. You either have to work around not having hit and run for a long time and focus on getting her SP regen and attacker, which is probably the best idea, but then you're either having to put her in something like the Wild Robber, which lots of characters want to be in the Wild Robber because they don't have hit and run, or you're just going to have to work around her not having the ability to use long range weaponry and be up close in the rush, taking on all those enemies as well on enemy phase. Or you go the other way, you get her hit and run immediately and make her better on an average given turn with being a ranged unit, but then she's longer away from SP regen, and longer away from attacker, longer away from other skills, and that's another thing. Rio has 4 of her 6 slots taken up by skills. You can't get rid of telekinesis, you're gonna eventually have to get rid of support defend, And so it's just an unfortunate thing because Rio, again, is a character that I really like, and she's got a lot of great things, but the problem is that it doesn't all gel together to make her truly an outstanding A+ unit. In my opinion, she usually falls into a middling group and doesn't really settle herself up above the high tiers of this game to make her a consistent deployment slot. Even on Ryusei route here, she is good, but she is far behind, at least in my personal opinion, in terms of the characters that I need to level up. I need to level up Ingram because Ingram needs to have a high level for his secret. After Ingram, Ryusei is probably the most important. Then there's Erm is probably my other big name that I want to get a lot of experience on and a lot of kills for to get his ace bonus. And then, there's Rai and Latuni. Rio probably comes after all of them, and then, there's also Aya that I need to level up as well. And there's also another character coming up that has a similar problem of coming late and doesn't have a lot of opportunity to grow here on Ryusei route, and then by the time you can really get Rio a bunch of levels and stuff, she's going to be behind again because once the route merge happens, all the characters from that route are going to be higher leveled than her. But to finish this out on a high note, Rio is, again, very, very consistent. If you need a unit to use some good range damage and attack a boss, well, Rio's really good at that. She's got Flash at base, she's got Valor at base, she just needs 2 more levels and she gets Bullseye, and there, she can now attack bosses and deal big damage and help out with the most important part of the game. So no matter what mech Rio is in or what build you've decided to go with her, she will always be above average at whatever job you decide for her to have. So unfortunately for a debut map, this isn't going to be the most interesting for Rio as she's not going to be super involved. She's mainly going to be tasked with not killing Ryoto because you don't want to take him down early because you won't get the SR point if you do that. So we're going to have her sit in the back, draw Ryoto away from the rest of our units so that they can take out the main group of units. We're also going to eventually have Rio next to a support defender. In this case, we're going to use Gyata. Garnet could also pull it off as well.
昔取った絹塚ってやつさ。ダブルオメガレーザー。一発や2発食らったぐらいでグルンガストを落とせば手柄になる。グルンガスト以外だったらシューハーぐらいってところだな。
So as we set up Ingram for another cheer kill, we're just going to be sending most of our main units out to take on the rest of the enemies here and also eventually take down Big Bad Thomas to get the SR point.
Go! くそ期待を発揮する
You obviously will notice that Ingram is instead in the Schutzwald. I can't really speak to why I did this. I don't believe at the time I truly fully believed in the Wildbrowder Ingram plan. The other thing is that Latuni is fantastic in the Wildbrowder. She's probably the best pilot in it because her great evasion combined with her really good range stat makes her very good at it, and because she doesn't have hit and run, it just suits her very well. Of course, Latuni is good in all sorts of other mechs as well, but the Wildbrowder really fits her and she makes the best out of a very solid unit. And I definitely have to mention that that torpedo kill is fantastic, that we got the kill by literally 1 extra damage, and so that's great. Makes the Hagane super useful on this map and for future maps to come if they're going to be able to deal that much damage with post move.
相手は女の子なのか。私のゲシュペースだね。
So unless you want to complete this map as quickly as possible, your best bet is to defend with Rio whenever Ryoto attacks you, because he's not very strong, and if you attack him, you'll probably get him into the range where the map will end. So we will continue to take down the remaining enemies. 3 barrel lines compared to the absolute conga line from the last scenario was completely nothing, so this will be child's play.
「うちはもめなんざやってる場合じゃないと思うけどな」スパイラルアタック。次はこうはいかんぞ。標準セット切り裂けスラッシュリッパー。こちらの走行では止められんのか。力の差。
相対速度確認。チャージ完了。
やられた。
And now we will move into fighting Thomas. He's a little rat and will try to defend and evade anytime you attack him, so it's going to be a real pain in the neck to try to take him down for the SR point. But if you keep hammering at him, eventually those defends will not be able to keep him alive.
Kitane手を使いやがって許せねえ。魔法剣エーテルちゃぶ台返し。おっといいのをもらっちまったぜ。
We're going to move Rio over into the forest for an evasion and defense boost, as well as getting support from Gyata and Garnet, so that we're pretty much guaranteed for her not to die from Ryoto's attacks.
手は女の子なのか。
打たれ強さには自信があるんでね。これじゃあガーネットに格好がつかないぜ。
So we will continue to swing at Thomas, and we have lots of turns left, so no need to rush and waste a whole bunch of SP. The reason I say don't get too aggressive with your SP is because Thomas can do that. He procced Lucky there, and I believe that's the first time we've actually seen Lucky be procced, as Garnet has seen very little combat, so she hasn't been able to proc it herself. What Lucky does is it guarantees a dodge even if you use Bullseye, and so as well it will guarantee a hit and a crit, but because Thomas is a little weasel and isn't attacking us, at least we don't have to deal with the damage on counterattack, so whoopee for that. Thomas is mostly just delaying the inevitable though, because again, he's not counterattacking us, and we still have loads of turns to work with. And Rio is in no real danger from Ryoto, so I'm mostly just working Thomas's HP down to a level where I can get a kill, where I can get a cheer kill as well as a bless kill to maximize our experience and money gain from this annoying piece of work that is the current boss of this map. Also of note, I'm not really using the Hagane to attack a lot here. It's just in close to provide its commander aura so that we get a little bit better hit rates for all of the units in close trying to attack Thomas. Also, one other important thing for this map is building will. I'm just attacking here with Mosky to get him to a high enough will so that he can use Akashic Buster. Because of the limited amount of enemies on this map and the fact that we don't really have any way to build will quickly right now, it's kind of important to do that to get your real hard hitters the will they need so that they can help take down Thomas quicker and make sure you get the SR point, even though it's not a real rush, of course, as I've mentioned. So I'm giving a cheer to Ingram here, even though he's not going to get the kill, because attacking a boss like Thomas gives extra experience, and so even though it's not going to be a whole lot extra, every little bit helps with Ingram, as again, you're trying to get to that level so that you can get the secret. And so if you ever really want to farm levels and you don't have a turn requirement for the scenario or for an SR point, just continually attacking a boss and getting the extra experience from fighting a boss, and as long as you deal damage, you'll get that experience. It's a little bit better than just trying to take down a whole bunch of enemies and trying to get sheer kills on all of them, and you're only going to have so many enemies to take down. But a boss, if they're really tanky, you can just keep on hitting them and hitting them and hitting them, and boss abuse them that way. So now I'm going to try and feed this kill to both Mosky and You can only do this on OGS because of the twin unit system, and so this is the first time I'm really using it. The twin system has a lot of different things to go over, but for now we're only going to focus on this important part of the twin system. If you use gain and or cheer on a twin unit, it applies to both units, so they both get double experience. Of course, bless applies to both units too technically, but you're still getting double money regardless, as long as you take out the enemy. So this is really good because then on a boss, when you get that big kill experience from taking out a boss, you can get it for 2 units. The secondary unit is going to take a little bit of an experience penalty, but there's no worry about your main unit. They will get the maximum amount of experience they would have got if they killed the unit solo. So basically, it's a way to get a little bit of extra experience on 2 units when taking down a boss, and that's what we're going to do here with and Mosky. And with the defeat of Thomas, that gets us the SR point and is also the completion of Scenario 15.